An estimate group is simply a collection of different items that you predefine in your settings under Settings, Estimate, and Groups here. So you see in this particular case, there's a group for blank group, which just has one particular item. There's a video group, which has these different items, design, and so forth, web hosting, photography, and printing in this example. These groups that you define in settings are the same groups that you will see under the drop-down for adding a group. So the same thing here. You have the blank group, video, design, web, and so forth. So why would you create groups? It just makes it a lot easier to have predefined sets of items that you do for different activities or different types of things that you quote. No matter what your business is, you will define your items or your services or your material costs or your labor rates or your individuals' fees on an hourly basis, for instance, in whichever way you want. And in the same way, you will create groups, which are collections of those for the different types of things that you do. And the more you do that kind of stuff, the easier Trackfront becomes to use because you don't have to do a lot of the manual entry. So to give you an example, the most laborious way is to create a blank group and then just start adding items one by one in here and adding them into that group and doing this, very manually one at a time and putting the quantity amounts in here, changing the descriptions if need be, and all of that kind of stuff, versus doing this in settings where you can predefine all of this kind of stuff in here and have it ready to go in the estimate side of things. So you can add one or multiple groups to an estimate. So if let's say I use one of our predefined groups, I'll add design here, for instance. And let's add one more called printing, for instance. Now, each one of these groups can be collapsed or expanded if it makes it easier for you to view them. You can also reorder the groups in any order that you want. I can put this one first, that one second, and so forth. And then expand them this way, for instance, again, to view them. I can also delete individual items within a group. Let's say I don't want this item or this item in a group. And under printing, I don't really care about the signage fee, so I can delete that. Or another thing you can do is delete an entire group. If you don't want a particular group or you made a mistake and put the wrong one in, you can just hit the trash can icon on the whole group and delete it there. Within any group, you can edit each particular row in the group. You can reorder individual items within a group. I can change the quantity to any of these. I can just tab through these and assign different hourly budgets to these or quantity budgets. Depends on what your items are set up to be and so forth. I can also change the language in here. I can go and adjust this on any one of these things. I can enter different dollar amounts in here. I can add adjustments. I can say I have a $15 markup on this particular thing, or I have a 20% markup, or I can have a negative 10% discount on something. Each one will get added here individually. I can even say this is a taxable item and this is taxed at 8.5%, for instance. Okay. Any of these changes that you make here will be reflected down here in the subtotal for the group, as well as the grand total for the entire estimate. Not only can you make changes to all of these things down at the item and row level here, but you can do it at the group level. So for instance, let's say you want to have an entire group multiplier of 3 of these. You can change the group quantity to 3, so you'll have your original group quantity of $4,451.48 times 3, which is the group multiplier, and then you have your group total. I can also do an adjustment at the group level. Let's say I want to do a 10% discount on the entire group level. I can adjust that here, and the adjustment shows up in there. But then I can also put in my particular sales tax in here as well if I needed to. You wouldn't really have it in both places, so whenever you put a sales tax up in the group header level, it automatically ignores the tax in the row level. You can also add individual items if you want here by clicking on the plus sign, and you'll be able to search through all of your items that you've set up here, or if you want to have certain items that are easier to find through different tags and categories that you've set up in your items list. That's an easy way to filter down here, and then it'll show up down here. Here's another thing I can do, which is duplicate this estimate. If I click the duplicate button, it'll simply make another copy of it down at the bottom here. Okay. And another nice feature too is this gear icon, which I can click on this to open up a modal that lets me choose a variety of different things, visibility being the first one. So let's say in this breakdown, I don't want to necessarily show my item markups or group adjustments, for instance. Maybe I'm giving them a 10% discount or I'm doing a markup, but I don't want them to see it. And maybe I don't want them to see the quantity. So I can uncheck different things, and different combinations of different checkboxes will allow you to show or hide different things. You can actually hide everything if you wanted and only show the group total. So that could be just one thing, and they only see the description that you would type down in here. So this would be where you put, your description in of whatever you want to describe this particular product or service or whatever it may be. So maybe I just put in just the name and description and the rate, and then if you were to save this and preview the estimate, now you'll see that only certain things are visible here. I only have the item and the description as was described here before. Now, for instance, if I change the visibility to include the quantity and the rate, but not the adjustments, and I hit save and preview, now I can see more detail, and this is what my customer would see. So you can show or hide as much as you want, which is really nice. So you can, it's all your personal preference. Another thing you can do with the gear icon is to change recurrence settings. So let's say this may be a monthly or a yearly service or a weekly service. You can change this to be per month. And if you click on options, you can make it an optional service and give it either a default state of checked or unchecked. So in other words, now that I did that, you can see here what it looks like on the client end of things. Now they have an optional choice to select this, pre-selected in this particular case or unselected, and it breaks it out as a total per month, for instance here. Additionally, the titles of each group can be changed to anything you want, and that will appear on the estimate as well. And in the group description, you have a Wysiwyg editor where you can format things with some basic things like bold, italic, or underline, or even create a link to anything you want, which makes it a live link. And changes are reflected right here in the actual estimate.